Welcome to NSA E-Nuggets series, a series of live talks on topics relating to active aging. These live talks will take place every Tuesday and Friday at 2 p.m. here on C3A's Facebook page. You can share this live video with your family and friends too. After the live session, this video will be made available on both our Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen from Center for Senior. Thank you for joining us in this sharing session. I hope all of you will learn something new today at the end of the next 1 hour. I would like to first thank you, Center for Senior, National Silver Academy, and C3A for this opportunity to be here doing the sharing with all of you. So, first of all, let me welcome all of you to Smart Retirement, Be a Wise Retirees. A survey was done last year by OCBC, an inaugural survey on financial health of Singaporeans. Unfortunately, we have seen the survey result shown that 3/4 of Singaporeans are not prepared for retirement. Now, hopefully you're not one of the 3/4 of Singaporeans, okay? And even you are, we want you to know, fret not, you are in safe hands. Let's learn together how to plan for retirement. There are top 5 concerns of all retirees in the world, not just in Singapore. First, inflation. As all of us agree, things are not getting cheaper. In fact, things are getting more and more expensive. And that's the reason why we need to plan for our retirement. The second concern will be medical expenses. Medical expenses have been one of the top concerns of all retirees around the world. First of all, it is definitely a regular trip we're going to make to hospital or even clinics to make sure part of us will be taken care of. And therefore, it's also one of the top worry of all retirees around the world, not just in Singapore. Third, outstanding debt. The last thing we want at the age of 55, 60, or 65, whichever age that we retire, we still have outstanding debt we need to clear. Fourth, technology. We are living in a highly advanced society, and everything we are using are very IT driven. Take for example, this sharing session. This sharing session is only possible we are doing it digitally over the net. And that is the reason why a lot of retirees are also worried that they will not be able to learn fast enough to adapt to the new world of technologically advanced society. Last but not least, it will be scam and fraud. We also do not want people to cheat us of our hard-earned retirement savings from our 40 years or even 30, 50 years of our working life. And therefore, this is also one of the major concerns when we retire in the world. Now, let me highlight, why do we need to plan for retirement? First, we're no longer living till the age of 60, 70. In fact, we're living longer. According to the Singapore Department of Statistics, in 2005, we have done a survey that 50% of us will live past age 80, while the other 50% of us have to surrender our NRIC before age of 80. Now, as years goes by the time we reach 2015, we discover that Singaporeans, on the average, will live past 82. And if we're going to do a survey in 2020 now, I do believe our average life expectancy will be 83. So we are living longer. All thanks to Health Promotion Board for promoting low sugar, less oil, less salt, all this type of campaign that make us be conscious of our health. Now, the good thing is, ladies, you're going to live 5 more years longer on the average than men. Okay, so learn to enjoy your life. So in other words, pictorially, we will see this thing. In the 60s, when we expect to retire at age 55, we probably have another 5 or 10 years of retirement to live through. But today, in the 21st century, we're going to expect to live 20, 25, or even 30 years into retirement. Now, that is a very long time. We need to plan. And that is the reason why we need to plan for retirement. On top of that, our money is not getting bigger and bigger. In fact, our money is getting smaller and smaller. So due to inflation, like I mentioned just now, 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, $2 can buy us a full plate of chicken rice. Today, we probably can only buy 2/3 of that. 10 years to 20 years down the road, we only expect the same old $2 will buy us 50% of the chicken rice. So we need to plan for retirement. Third, we're expecting good life for ourselves. Okay, after working for 30, 40, or even 50 years of our life, we want to enjoy our life. So in the past, whereby we enjoy our coffee session in the good old kopitiam with probably 50 cents, 70 cents, or even $1 kopi or kopi o, or maybe kopi o siu tai for some of you. Today, we'll get to see more of us enjoying latte, cappuccino, espresso, and probably outlet like Starbucks. So we are expecting to enjoy life much more than our parents. Lastly, one of the main reasons why we need to plan for retirement is we need more servicing. Our body part is getting older, and that's the reason why we need to make sure we are prepared for it. So having said so, what are the areas in retirement that we need to plan for? Retirement planning covers a number of things. So in summary, it covers first the cash flow and debt management. We make sure that by the time we retire, we are able to manage our income, expenses, and our debt. Second, will be about insurance planning. We need to make sure we are adequately covered by the time we retire, and make sure we are still adequately covered for the rest of our life. Third, savings and investment. We need to make sure our money can outlast us instead of we outlast our money. Fourth, will be estate planning. Before we surrender our NRIC, we need to make sure that all our wishes have been planned for and make sure the right thing goes to the right person. So let's look at all these 4 areas in detail. Cash flow and debt management. We need to be concerned about income and expenses. Second big area we need to think about will be our emergency cash. It is very important during retirement, we still need to maintain some emergency cash for ourselves in case of unforeseen circumstances. Last but not least will be loan repayment. Whatever loans that we need to pay off, say for example, car loans, housing loans, or even personal loans that we take on for our children's education, all this need to be looked into. On insurance planning, there are a lot of risks, all of us agree. But these are the 5 main risks we need to be, in particular, be concerned on. First, death. By the time we pass on, we must make sure that we have a certain amount of money able to cater for our loved one as well. Second will be disability. We also don't want to be a financial burden to our children or any of our loved ones. So we need to make sure that we are adequately covered in the event of disability. Third will be personal accident. Take for example, things like small injury, dengue fever, maybe food poisoning. We need to make sure that we have an adequate personal accident plan to cover this for small amount of medical expenses. Now for big medical expenses, whereby we need to seek a professional medical specialist help, the medical plan including MediShield Life, will be something we need to be aware of. Last but not least will be a critical illnesses coverage. Now, for critical illness coverage, it's not just about taking care of the big medical bill that due to cancer, stroke, or any of the major diseases, but also make sure that while we are recuperating through the major illnesses, we still have money to tie through our daily living. Now, that are the 5 areas in insurance planning we need to plan for during retirement. Now, come to savings and investment. These are the few areas most Singaporeans will need to look into. First, cash. Do we have enough savings that we can have decent amount of investment for ourselves, and however, when we need the money, we still can withdraw it any point of time. Therefore, fixed deposit cash account will be needed. Second, our CPF money. We need to know how our CPF money are able to support us for the rest of our life. Take, for example, CPF Life. Next, some of us will have bought insurance even for retirement. So we make sure that these are also able to provide us some form of money that cater for our needs. Now, interestingly, some people like to invest in shares. Take a look at your shares. Make sure that it's fully diversified, ensuring that whatever economic circumstances, the portfolio of our the investment portfolio can be well taken care of. Bonds, unit trust, for some of us who are less averse to risk, unit trust could be a good option to consider. Property, which is a very favorite topic of all Singaporeans. Our HDB, our private estates, can be used as a form of rental income for our retirement. So this is one source of income that you can consider looking into for our retirement fund. For some of us who are more adventurous, financial derivatives like warrants, options, futures, forex, these are things that you may want to actually explore, but please take note of the risk. And things like businesses, venture investment into startup. Some of us who are in this space who want to actually have a little bit of fun of investing in others, this could be considered as well for a form of retirement revenue. But also, please be aware of the risk. So you can actually end up with zero, okay, if you invest the wrong thing. So please be mindful of the risk in whatever you invest in. Last, on retirement planning will be estate planning. Now, whether we are doing CPF nomination or insurance nomination, please talk to an expert to look into whether are you covering, are you distributing your asset to the right person in the right time. Will. I do believe a lot of us have not written a will. So please look into writing a will for your retirement planning. Last but not least will be a lasting power of attorney, whereby while we are still mentally sound, we need to make sure that in the event we are not able to perform mental tasks that require us to think for ourselves, we need somebody to take care of us as well. So have this in mind when we do our estate planning. Now, having said that, there's only one part in retirement planning. We are digitally connected every day, everywhere. So we need to be mindful that when we retire, we need to be a smart retirees. So connect digitally is a necessity in today's world. So these are tools. Okay, I hope all of us are familiar with the tablets and the handphone. So even we are not familiar with, probably our children would actually get us familiar with, because over the next 10 years, Singapore is going to be a smart nation, and a lot of things will require our usage of these devices. So having said that, QR codes, you need to be familiar with how to use it. So make sure your device have QR code scanners. Second, WhatsApp, okay, a very popular communication tool. Use that, okay, and learn how to use that for communication purpose. Facebook, interestingly, Facebook is a place that all of us socially connected. So learn how to actually use it to your best advantage. I believe some of us are watching some Korean drama or even Chinese drama. YouTube could be a channel for entertainment. Understand what is Google. If you need to search for anything, use Google or any kind of search engine to search for a thing that you want. Zoom. This session is conducted using Zoom. So please also learn how to use some of these devices to communicate with even friends or relatives, even in this COVID period of time. Now, we also need to understand how to use some of these modern tools of payment. Nets Pay, OCBC Pay anyone, UOB Mighty, DBS Payla, PayNow. We need to learn how to use it. Now, beside that, we also need to understand that there are also other e-payment platforms like Alipay, WeChat Pay, and our popular GrabPay, whereby we use it for our ride sharing. However, having said that, we need to be mindful of the cybersecurity measures to be taken. Never ever disclose very sensitive personal information as much as possible, because the last thing we want is scammers or people of ill intention make use of information to do nasty things. So be mindful of that. Keep all password a secret. Please don't use PASSWORD as a password. So understand, use a password that you're familiar with, you can remember, but don't share with everyone, except for somebody who close to you probably need to help you in the some transaction or some correspondence. The domain itself will give you an indication whether this is going to be a virus or probably something that is harmful to our computer, or maybe things that could actually extract information from the emails or from the phone or the messages that we are using. So please mindful with that. Last but not least, I'd like to share this thing, how to protect ourselves from scam and fraud. Now, during this COVID-19 period, there's a lot of things happening, especially fake news and scam. So we need to be mindful. Fake news, health products that deemed to be super duper good, at a discount, phishing and virus, click. Just now I mentioned about web link, so make sure you don't click on them anyhow. And a fake enforcement officer, so you need to verify their identity first before you disclose your personal particulars or even give them money, because government do not extort money from anyone. Understand that? Next thing will be job and volunteering. Now, during this COVID-19 session, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who ask for people to volunteer for something, or even have job for you. Be mindful, some of this job agency or even organization that ask for these volunteers, make sure you're able to identify them rightly before you commit to anything. Fake donation, something we also need to be aware of during this COVID-19 season. We need to make sure that as we are kind to people, we are also need to be mindful that some of these people could be of ill intention. So be mindful of that. So just to share with you, in order to prevent any financial loss, we need to make sure that we check against this website, scamalert.sg. Make sure that all this information are verified. Things are what they are, and the people in terms of enforcement, you need to make sure they are really coming from the right authority. So just to share with you an example. Now, the government, you can see the government debunk some rumors about lockdown of Singapore. So please check against the official website or any official source of information to verify some of this news. So don't believe just because it was sent by somebody that you know. So verify this so that you are not spreading fake news and creating panics across the society or the community they are in. These are also another example. Remember in the earlier part of the COVID period, whereby there's a lot of messages sent out saying this mall, that mall have outbreak or some detection of COVID-19 cases. So these messages was passed around WhatsApp and all other social media. So please be mindful and verify this source. This is another case. So this is an example. Now, if you're on Facebook and you think that some of the news sent out could be of ill intention, verify with the Singapore Police Force website and check whether is there anybody have similar experience, similar messages been received, and see whether will the police have anything to say about it. Like this. Like police do not conduct check at the individual residential unit just to ensure the safe distancing measures. So check with the authority and see whether the news are real or fake. Now, if you really need to find any form of information, this could be a website you can check with. The www.gov.sg articles/COVID-19 clarification. This is a website you need to take note to make sure that some of these news are being clarified. Okay, and if you're not sure about whatever information being received, don't share. That's the first rule. Now, impersonation. Sorry about that. This is about the face mask, fake product. Now, you notice that during the early part of COVID-19, there's a lot of people selling different things to different people. So be mindful that all these source of products must be from a legitimate source. So make sure you check whether this person have the right permit to bring in some of this medical product, have the right information verified by the relevant authority whether they are real medicine that can actually cure some kind of disease. So please be aware of that. Now, impersonation is very common as well during the earlier part of the COVID, whereby people impersonate government official to extort money. Now, please understand this is not the common practice for the Singapore authority, and therefore be mindful that to protect your personal welfare from these people that are trying to impersonate government official. This is another COVID-19 scam alert. MOH also do not require you to disclose your financial detail or personal detail to them. Even they want to do all this tracking. So be mindful of your information. If you're not sure, you can check with MOH at the helpline to verify the person that asking you for all this information. So be as careful as possible. Now, this is something that also happening last few weeks when the government start to give out this temporary relief fund. And there's a lot of all these fake messages that have been sent out to people. So therefore, be sure to check with the police or the right authority for such message as well. So these are some examples. Phishing of information can be done via WhatsApp messages. So same thing, I would like to warn everybody to be mindful of any links that you're being given by anybody that possibly coming from you people that you know of. Before you click, make sure you ask the person whether have you sent this link to me. If you are, have you checked the source of this link. Okay. Yeah. In the next, this will be the one last thing I would like to share with you, will be this one-time password. Be mindful, do not share your one-time password to anyone that you may know or may not know, okay? Because this is one scam that a lot of people was caught, and unfortunately, some personal information were taken from them and use it for any undesirable circumstances or outcome. So please be mindful and not to share such thing to anyone. So if you're not very sure, okay, you can also check for the scamalert.sg/news for any information that relating to something that you find very suspicious and you find something that is not right. Okay, have the gut feeling, okay, of or sixth sense to find that it's not right. Check with this website to ensure that you get the right information. With that, I hope everybody have learned something from this short sharing session. Okay, I would like to take on some questions. Do you have anybody have any questions? Okay, the first question is how to help elderly handle scam or fake news. Now, whether our family members, relative, or any elderly that we encounter, please ask them to verify the source of information. How? By checking, first of all, okay, if it's related to anything that deal with COVID-19, check with Ministry of Health. Anything that deal with support measures, check with the Ministry of Finance. Okay, these are some of the websites you need to be aware of. And some of these government measures, same thing, you have to check with the government gov.sg for more information, so they make sure that you get the right information and disseminate instead of spreading the fake news. Okay, the next question is financial planning is a topic to advise. What are they? Okay, the person will ask this question. Can you repeat your question so that I can understand more about your questions? Okay, maybe the person is too shy or still thinking about how to ask. Okay, financial planning is a very wide topic. It covers things like I just mentioned, retirement planning, okay, for retirees, cash flow and debt management, insurance planning, investment and savings planning, children education planning, even to the extent estate planning, where we're talking about nomination, wills, and even lasting power of attorney. So because it's a wide topic, I'll probably go through one by one in a very brief manner. Now, when it comes to cash flow and debt management, it's all about managing your income and expenses. Make sure you have a budget to track what you're spending, how you're earning your income, and make sure that if anywhere you have overspent, the following month just need to be mindful you should not overspend in the particular area, or make sure you save money through some other ways or means. Now, by insurance, it is also a very wide topic. It covers not just the 5 items that I mentioned just now in the sharing session, but more specifically, it will cover things like your car insurance, your house insurance. For those who are in business, how do you protect your business from situations like this in terms of business disruption, okay, and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to savings and investment, okay, everything that we are investing or savings have a risk. Either the risk of inflation or the risk of the market eroding our hard-earned money. So make sure you understand yourself in terms of risk. Are you able to sleep comfortably with 1,000 of your savings invested in somewhere? do you know what exactly are you investing in? Remember layman's issue back in the 2006-07 time? The layman's, they have a very big issue, and there's a lot of financial instrument that attach to this crisis. People lose a lot of money, okay, out of investing in them. So make sure you understand what exactly are these instruments. Ensure that all this information are given to you by whoever recommend you this product, so that you are able to make very informed decision before you sign on the dotted line. Now, when it comes to retirement planning, we already covered this, not just about all this, but also talking about CPF, the management of CPF money. Now, how are you going to make sure that CPF life, you have enough to last through the last day of our life? And not just that, how do you use some of the government measures like the lease buyback scheme to make sure that we are able to have decent amount of lifestyle during our retirement? And finally, about the will, the trust, the nomination. Okay, have you done any nomination with CPF or even your life insurance policy? Okay, do you understand the implication of any of the nomination fail, and how are you going to take care of all these failures from nomination? Okay, that is a broad stroke on retirement planning. Okay, somebody asked, okay, who can help to write a will and costing? Can it be cheaper? Now, you can go to a lawyer to look after your estate planning, or you can look for some estate planning professionals. So, in terms of cost, I'm not in a position to advise you on this, but check with them before you engage them to do up your will, and make sure that you know what you're doing before you elect a will. What important insurance should over the age of 60 and elderly singles get? Now, I think health insurance is something we are very, very concerned when we're entering the last 20, 30 years of our life. So make sure your health insurance coverage should be adequate to prevent us from getting into a financial situation. And if some of us are still having a roof over our head instead of staying with our children, make sure your home content insurance be adequately covered. Okay, probably these are the two first concern for the insurance coverage. Other than that, I can share more when you sign up for our course of this financial management literacy for retirement planning, so we can share more on how do you plan for your insurance during your elderly year. What are my advice or tips for coping with life for the upcoming deep depression? How long did a typical depression last? Now, first of all, it's not up to me to define this slowdown as a depression. Okay, I leave it to the government and the economists to make that terminology. Now, whatever the circumstances, we need to make sure that there are three things we must prepare well for such circumstances. First, money. Financially, we need to be sound. Second, health. Make sure we build our immune system, exercise, and be happy with our life. Third, relationship. Make sure we still enjoy good relationship with our family members, relatives, friends, colleagues, or even ex-colleagues, or even our neighbors. Make sure that we have people that support us for such a low period of the economy. So these are probably the three things we need to look out for. Okay, how do I start my retirement process? Now, first thing first, you need to understand that before you start any retirement planning, you need to have a desire. What is your retirement desire? Do you want to stay in Singapore? Are you planning to travel more extensively during the first 5 to 10 years of your retirement? Are you planning to do something or achieve something during your golden years? Have a goal in mind first. Then look into what sort of resources we have at this junction. Maybe our financial resources, maybe our assets. So what are the things we have? Also, at the same time, we look after our debt obligation. Are we still paying someone or somewhere a debt, a loan? Make sure that is taken care of, because the last thing we want is to be worried about having to pay someone with our limited resources. After which, the third step will be plan the route from point A, which is our goal, from point A, which is our current position, to point B, our goal. How do we take this path? Do we need to get a licensed financial professional to advise us? Do we talk to our friend? Do we check from the Google or news about ways how to reach from point A to point B? So these are the three things that we need to be aware of when we look into retirement process. Next question will be, what should we do age above 60? Now, there's a lot of things we can do. It can be fulfilling your long-time dreams, like travel across 50 countries around the world, taste the most impressive food in the world. So there's a lot of things can be done. So it's really up to all of us to think, how to live our golden years in the most beautiful, graceful manner that we can possibly be. Next question will be, is it better to make use of the lease buyback scheme rather than wait till the end of the 99-year lease? Now, this is not a simple question to answer. First of all, it really depends on what you want. If you decided to stay at your neighborhood, to retire comfortably with people that you know over the last few decades, then maybe you want to consider lease buyback to retire in place while having money coming in to support your retirement lifestyle. And if you think that maybe I may not want to actually sell back my last 20 years or 30 years lease to HDB, I would like to actually decide when I want to go to stay with my children. Maybe you can wait to a comfortable time to sell your house and move to your children's place. So it's something that you can think of, but not a decision that I can make for you. Okay, somebody is still asking about writing a will. Okay, probably I'll just share about how to go about writing a will in a very layman's form, not the legal manner. You have to get a lawyer to draft out the legal documents for your documentation. But before you actually consider writing a will, understand the Intestate Succession Act. What is it meant to have your assets distributed by the government by an act called Intestate Succession Act? What is the order that the government will distribute if you pass on without a will? Understand that. If you're comfortable with that, then maybe a will, you can avoid doing it. But chances is that some of us will want to take care of something or someone that the Intestate Succession Act may not cater for. To write a will, first of all, you need to make sure that you have your assets ready. Table down all your assets. make sure you have everything in place, label down who you want to distribute in as beneficiary. Then you do the link from what you have to who you want to give. So that is how you can plan for your distribution of your financial assets. Once you have that clear out, talk to a lawyer or an estate planning professional to draft out the draft will. Have a look, understand what does it mean first before you decided to actually conclude it as a will, a final will as of that point of time. Okay, I have a next question. I don't have enough for my everyday expenses. How to save? What to save? Now, because of limited resource, all the more we need to save. We need to plan for long term. And that is the reason why you need to have a budget. Plan out a budget. What you need to have, what you want to have. Then decide for yourself whether can you take away some of your wants, okay, simplify your lifestyle, and make sure that I can live within my means to have a small amount to save to plan for our long-term dreams. Because without doing the budget every day or even every month, it could be a struggle to plan for a long-term plan. Make sure you do your budget, understand there are something that you need to sacrifice. Okay, once you have a little bit more, maybe you can pamper yourself with some sweetener or something once a while. Okay, indulge in something once a while, but not indulge in something for the as a lifestyle. Okay, to save for our retirement. Okay, I have another question relating to will again. Must we go to a lawyer to make a will? It is preferred to go to a lawyer to do up a will because at least they can translate our layman's language to a legal language in a legal document to ensure that there are no conflicts due to wrong interpretation. The last thing we want is while we are somewhere, we are looking below to look at our family fighting over our assets. So please be mindful. If you are not sure, talk to a lawyer friend. Understand the implementation, the implication of not doing a will with a lawyer. Okay, what percentage of my income should I plan for retirement? Now, there's no magic formula. Okay, while there's a lot of advisors have specific formulas for retirement. From my point of view is, have a goal. Work out how much to fulfill that goal. Be it a simple lifestyle, be it a lavish lifestyle, you would able to come up with a certain number. If you're not too sure, you can go to CPF tools to do something called a CPF retirement estimator to make sure that you're able to come up with a number. Now that you have that number, look at what you have. You may have probably a X dollar at this junction. Okay, you need to reach the Y dollar. So with that, you're able to decide what and how you're able to achieve that. It can be through investment, or it can be just by savings, or it can be just rethink how you're able to generate more income to create that revenue stream to reach your goals. How much one needs to have for retirement is $500,000 or 1 million. Now, that is a question that all of us need to think through. Now, based on Singapore statistics, most of us would require X dollar of income to sustain our lifestyle. Now, It could be 2,000, it could be 2,500, it could be 3,000. It's really up to individual. But generally, most people are okay with 2,000 to 2,500 monthly income for retirement. Now, once you work out 2,000 times 12 months, times 20 years in retirement, that will be a number. Okay, most of us will need to prepare for retirement. But whether 2,000 is enough for you, that is for you to question yourself. Okay, I'll take the last question in consideration of time. Now, where to put my money to get higher return under current circumstances? Now, I'm not going to actually provide a financial advice down here, but you might want to check with a professional financial advisor on where are the areas of opportunity you can still invest for the long term, mid-term, and even short term. But for short term, you might want to just consider holding on cash. Having cash, it allows you the flexibility when and what and how to invest when the opportunity arises. So having some amount of money in your bank account give you the luxury of choice during this point of time. In fact, this point of time, there's quite a number of things can be considered for investment or for higher return. Maybe insurance plan, safe, stable, a small amount of decent return. So when the times is right, you can consider to invest into the market when there are more opportunity to capture. With that, I thank all of you for this sharing session. I would like to once again thank C3A, National Server Academy, Center for Senior for this opportunity to be here doing the sharing with all of you. Please look out for our workshop after this session to find out more about how to plan wisely for your retirement. Okay, with that, I thank you.
Stay tuned for the next session of the NSA e-Nugget series, which goes live every Tuesday and Friday at 2 p.m. on C3A's Facebook page. You can check out the talk schedule at www.c3a.org.sg and for more resources on how you can age well. For more enquiries, you can call 6478 5026. Thanks for watching. See you soon.